What do you get when a royal guest strides confidently onto a live TV set, expecting to shape an entire conversation, and finds himself confronted by one who simply refuses to play along? Today, you're about to see just that. We're unpacking one of the most unforgettable clashes in daytime television. The moment Prince Harry stepped onto the Loose Women's stage expecting an easy ride, and instead met Denise Welch at her fiercest. But before we dive into this full-blown on-air collision, hit that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments if you believe celebrities crumble too easily when faced with real questions. Because this instant proves some absolutely do. The tension was palpable inside ITV studios long before the cameras went on. Harry arrived with the usual entourage, clearly expecting the sort of polite, careful treatment he's grown accustomed to. But Loose Women isn't exactly known for handing out royal cushions, and Denise Welch certainly wasn't about to start bowing to anybody. As the opening theme played, Harry fiddled with his tie, giving off that unmistakable look of someone who thought he knew what was coming, but absolutely did not. Meanwhile, Christine Lampard, Nadia Sawalha, and Kay Adams exchanged those knowing glances that longtime viewers instantly recognize. Denise was in one of those moods. And when Denise is in that mode, the interview stops being predictable and it starts becoming dangerous. Before producers could even finish the countdown, Denise leaned in and kicked things off. We're joined now by Prince Harry, here to talk about his latest ventures. Harry, thanks for being with us. Harry gave the classic polished smile he's worn since childhood. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. But Denise saw right through it. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing in the way that means she's about to confront someone head-on. Is it, though? Because from what I've been reading, you've had plenty to say about the British media lately. And just like that, the temperature in the room plummeted. Harry's smile twitched. I think it's important to have honest conversations about media responsibility and how certain stories are reported. Honest conversations, Denise repeated, her voice slicing through the air. Right. So, when you criticize the British press, are you including shows like this one? Because we're British media too, aren't we? Christine stepped in, softening the blow. What Denise means is that perhaps you can help us understand your perspective a bit more. But by then, Harry had already stepped directly into the trap. His jaw tightened, his voice sharpened. I think there's a difference between responsible journalism and the kind of tabloid sensationalism that has targeted my family for decades. Without missing a beat, Denise said, sensationalism? That is a big claim. Are you suggesting that anything that doesn't flatter you is automatically sensationalist? That's not what I said. Harry shot back, his composure slipping by the second. Most reasonable people can see the difference between fair reporting and deliberate character assassination. The audience went dead silent. The air could be felt with tension between them. Nadia tried a joke to lighten the mood, something about this being a far cry from their usual Tuesday debate about pineapple on pizza, but it barely landed. Because Denise was nowhere near finished. She leaned in again. Character assassination is a serious accusation, Harry. Are you saying that when journalists report on your actions, your statements, your choices, they're assassinating your character? Harry tried to regain control, but the shift had already happened. Denise had him cornered, and everyone in that studio knew it. I'm saying there's a pattern of negative coverage that goes beyond legitimate criticism. And with that, the interview had officially spiraled into one of the most compelling confrontations Loose Women had ever aired. Pattern? Denise repeated the word softly, almost savoring it, like a prosecutor who had just heard the confession she'd been waiting for. She tilted her head, eyes locked onto Harry. And who exactly decides what counts as legitimate criticism, Harry? You. The question floated in the air, like a gauntlet thrown at his feet. Harry shifted, the discomfort finally visible. The royal polish that normally armored him was fast slipping to reveal the cracks below the surface. I think any person with common sense is able to tell the difference, he replied. But the confidence in his tone was dissipating. Denise caught the wobble instantly. A slow smile crept across her face, not friendly, not warm, but the kind of smile someone gives when they know they've found the weak point. Common sense, right? So your common sense says any criticism of your choices is unfair. but our common sense should always conclude that you're in the right. That jab hit hard. Sensing the collision course, Kay Adams tried to swerve onto safer ground. Maybe we could shift to your positive projects, Harry. Our viewers would love to hear about your charity work. But by then, the interview had gone too far off script. Harry didn't grab the lifeline. He let it sink. I came here expecting a professional interview, he said sharply. Not an ambush. And that was the word, the spark that ignited the rest of the firestorm. Ambush, as if being asked basic questions about his own statements was some kind of betrayal. Denise's eyebrows shot upward so dramatically it almost got a laugh from the audience. An ambush? She echoed, her tone rising. Harry, you're on a show where we talk about current events and ask questions. That is literally the premise. Did no one explain the format to you before you sat down? The room was frozen. That was the moment the interview turned from heated to explosive. Harry colored deep red. I understand the format perfectly well. Thank you. What I don't understand is this hostile line of questioning. Christine tried one final rescue mission. I don't think anyone is being hostile, Harry. Denise is just asking the things viewers at home are curious about. But it didn't matter, Harry had fully dug in. These aren't questions, he snapped. They're accusations dressed up as journalism. Denise gave a sharp, mirthless laugh. Accusations? Harry, I have asked you 3 questions, all of them about things you have said publicly. If that feels like an accusation, maybe the issue isn't with the questions. The panelists were glued to the exchange, watching the verbal volley like spectators at center court. The studio audience, once politely attentive, was now mesmerized. You could practically feel everyone leaning in. Harry's voice took on a particular tone, a clipped, superior edge that only comes from a lifetime of believing that criticism doesn't apply to you. I think viewers can see exactly what's happening here. This is exactly the kind of media behavior I've been speaking out against. Oh, is it? Denise asked, leaning back and folding her arms with deliberate calm. So when you go on global television and make massive claims about your family, this country, and its institutions, that's you just sharing your truth. But when someone asks you to explain those claims, suddenly that's media behavior? Harry snapped. That's completely different. He was now hanging by a thread. Different how? Denise shot back instantly. Because you're the one talking instead of being questioned? Because when you're the one telling the story, no one challenges it. But here, you actually have to defend your own words. Nadia stepped in, hopeful but obviously exhausted. Maybe we're drifting off topic. Harry, why don't you tell us about the positive changes you're hoping to make? But by then, the interview wasn't drifting, it was sinking. Harry was beyond salvation by that time. Harry's face was, by now, bright with frustration. His jaw clamped into that unmistakable stubborn expression that viewers had seen time and again in tense interviews. I don't think I should have to defend speaking my truth to people who have already made up their minds, he said. And that phrase, my truth, hit the table like a red flag waved in front of a bull. Denise leaned in at once. Your truth? She repeated, voice low and pointed. That's an interesting choice of words. Whatever happened to the truth? You know, the actual facts everyone can agree on. Harry's voice rose. The facts are that my family and I have endured years of intrusive, inaccurate, and often malicious coverage. Intrusive coverage of public figures doing public duties with public money. Denise shot back, quick as a whip. Shocking. Truly shocking. Imagine the press reporting on what someone does in public. Christine was visibly alarmed now. Perhaps we ought to take a minute. But no. The interview had already jumped the tracks and was barreling toward a spectacular, unavoidable collision. Harry's voice changed to icy authority as he said, I came here in good faith to have a civilized discussion. And we're having one, Denise replied calmly. I'm asking straightforward questions about things you've publicly said. If that feels uncivilized to you, maybe the problem isn't the questions. Harry's voice tightened with barely contained anger. The problem is you're not listening to what I'm actually saying. You're just looking for gotcha moments. Denise smiled, sharp as a blade. Oh, I'm listening. And what I'm hearing is that when you speak publicly, you think your words should be accepted without challenge. But when others speak publicly about you, you call it unfair. Am I wrong? That's not what I'm saying at all, Harry insisted. But the conviction was gone from his voice. Then what are you saying? Denise pressed. Because from here, it sounds like you want the right to criticize everyone around you. But the moment someone asks you to explain your criticism, you take offense. Kay made one last, fragile attempt at peacekeeping. Maybe there's just a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Harry interjected, firm and indignant. What's happening right now is a perfect example of the hostile media environment I've been talking about. And there it was. The moment that would be clipped, replayed, dissected, and memed across the whole internet. A grown man, a literal prince, calling a routine interview hostile because someone dared ask him follow-up questions. Denise's face changed from combative to stunned disbelief. A hostile environment? Harry, you are sitting in a comfortable chair on a daytime talk show being asked about things you said in public. If this is hostile to you, what do you call real hardship? This is exactly the kind of media manipulation that pushes people away from public service, Harry said, his voice now openly bristling. Media manipulation? Denise echoed in disbelief. Harry, I asked you to explain your own words. That's manipulation? By now, the other panelists were wincing. Christine fidgeted with the cue cards in her hand. Nadia fixed her gaze on the desk, wishing she could disappear into it. Kay kept looking sideways at the control booth, her eyes pleading silently with someone, anyone, to cut to commercial. But the meltdown was too big, too raw, too unmissable. There would be no escape. Harry had stepped over a line, and Denise wasn't about to let him retreat behind titles or protocol. You know what, Harry? She said finally. I believe our viewers are smart enough to see exactly what's going on. You walked onto this show expecting soft questions and deferential treatment because of who you are. That's absolutely not true, Harry protested. But the words sounded empty, like even he didn't believe them. Isn't it? Denise shot back. Because the moment someone treats you like any other guest, asks you the same questions we'd ask any other public figure, you start talking about ambushes and hostile environments. Harry's composure finally cracked open. Whatever restraint he had been clinging to dissolved in an instant. His voice jumped in volume, and for the first time, viewers saw the simmering, petulant anger lurking beneath the polished exterior. I don't have to sit here and be lectured by someone who clearly has an agenda. The studio froze. It was as if the cameras themselves had stopped moving. Denise's eyebrows arched slowly, and when she spoke, her voice was deathly calm, the type of quiet that signals real danger. An agenda? And what agenda would that be, Harry? But Harry had gone too far to turn back. His face was ablaze, his jaw locked, and when he spoke again it came out dripping with entitlement and fury, anger from someone clearly not used to being confronted this way. The agenda of making me look bad to boost your ratings. The accusation dropped like poison into the room. Denise stared at him, her expression unreadable. When she finally answered, her voice was glacial. Making you look bad? Harry, I haven't made you do anything. I've asked questions. You chose your answers. If that makes you look bad, maybe the problem isn't the questions. A thundering silence followed, thick, sharp, suffocating. You could practically hear every person in the studio inhaling at the same time. Harry had just accused a respected broadcaster of running a ratings-driven vendetta, and the look in Denise Welch's eyes suggested he was about to regret that more than anything he'd said so far. Boost my ratings, Denise repeated softly, her voice dropping lower and lower, the unmistakable sign, if one knew her, that the storm had indeed arrived. Let me understand this, Harry. In your mind, I've ambushed you, created a hostile environment, and I'm now running some personal crusade against you. All for ratings. Harry seemed to realize, too late, that he might have gone too far. But rather than retreat, he doubled down. I think it's obvious what this is. This isn't journalism. It's entertainment at my expense. And that was the moment Denise finally lost her patience. Her voice cut through the air like a knife. Entertainment at your expense? Harry, you came into the studio of your own free will. Nobody threatened you onto this set. Nobody was holding a gun to your head when you made every public statement I've asked you about tonight. And nobody forced you to sit here and throw a temper tantrum because somebody dared pose follow-up questions to you. The rest of the panelists shrank in their seats. Christine stared desperately at the production booth, her eyes begging silently for anyone to cut to ads. But the producers knew they were witnessing television lightning, and they weren't going to interrupt for anything. Harry's face turned from red to an alarming shade of purple. Spoiled child? You dare to speak to me like that? There it was. The eruption. Not a crack in the mask. An outright explosion that showed the entitled fury beneath. The meltdown was complete. Denise's smile turned arctic. How dare I? Harry, you're on my show, accusing me of having an agenda, calling simple questions an ambush, and now you're dictating how I'm allowed to speak to you. Who exactly do you think you are? I know exactly who I am. Harry shot back, his voice shooting into a register wildly inappropriate for daytime television. And I know I don't have to tolerate this treatment from anyone. The audience was glued to the unfolding chaos. This wasn't just a tough interview anymore. This was a real-time implosion. Nadia tried one last time to salvage the moment. Maybe we should all take a breath, but Harry was well beyond saving at this point. He was now in fully entitled prince mode, and it was a spectacularly unflattering sight. Calm down, he spat. I am calm. What I am is disgusted by this ambush masquerading as journalism. Denise had reached her limit. When she finally spoke, her tone was calm, controlled, and absolutely final. All right, that's enough. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Harry, you've called this an ambush. You've accused me of having some hidden motive. You've implied I'm using you for ratings. And now you're lecturing me on journalism while throwing a fit because someone asked you to clarify your own statements. Harry added gasoline to the fire instead of cooling the situation down. I am not having a tantrum, Harry said sarcastically, his voice betraying him with a thin crack of irritation. Oh, aren't you? Denise shot back. Because from where I'm sitting, you look like someone who expected royal treatment, literally, and you're losing it because I'm treating you like every other guest. And that's when things went from uncomfortable to explosive. Harry sprang to his feet, his chair scraping across the studio floor. I don't have to listen to this. It was to be a bold move, something dramatic, something commanding. It looked, instead, precisely like what Denise had just accused him of. A grown man throwing a childlike tantrum because the conversation wasn't going his way. Denise didn't bat an eye. No, you don't. There's the door, Harry. You're entirely free to leave at any time. Her casual dismissal took him by complete surprise. Obviously, he had expected scrambling apologies, desperate attempts to keep him in the seat. What he got instead was an invitation to exit. But Harry wasn't done trying to salvage control, at least not yet. This is the kind of media behavior that destroys people, he insisted, though the conviction had drained from his voice. What destroys people? Denise said coolly, is believing their title exempts them from answering the same questions everybody else gets. Christine tried once more to patch up the situation. Harry, please. Why don't you sit down and we can start over? But by this time, he was already too deep into his bruised ego to accept a reset. Start over? After being insulted and ambushed on live TV. Kay Adams, silent up until now, spoke up softly. Harry, I think you might be overreacting. Overreacting. Harry practically yelped. I'm being attacked on live television. And you think I'm overreacting? That was it. Denise wasn't giving him another inch. Right? She said, slicing through his rant like a blade. I think it's time for you to leave. This interview is over. The air in the studio froze. Harry stared at her, stunned. Actually stunned. As if the idea that someone could dismiss a prince simply did not compute. You're throwing me off the show? His voice had shrunk to something small, almost unsure. I'm ending an interview that stopped being useful the moment you decided answering questions was beneath you, Denise said, unflinching. Harry looked around the room as though he expected a producer, a panelist, someone, anyone, to swoop in and declare Denise couldn't possibly remove a royal from the set. But no one met his eyes. No rescue was coming. "This will be all over the papers tomorrow," he warned, in a final attempt at intimidation. Denise's smile sharpened. "Yes, it will. And viewers will see exactly what happened, how you were asked fair questions and chose to melt down instead of answer." And with that, the Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, stormed off the Loose Women set to leave behind one of the most chaotic daytime TV moments in recent memory. And now the biggest question. What do you think? And there you have it. The full breakdown of how Prince Harry managed to get himself kicked off Loose Women in what can only be described as an unforgettable on-air meltdown. Did Harry overreact? Did Denise go too far? Or was she simply doing her job? Tell me what you think in the comments. And subscribe for more celebrity moments when the spotlight gets a little too hot to handle.